To Mr. Stearns, we're going to designate you most likely in appropriate places as the motion map of the appropriate window.
I'm sorry, you're gonna do what?
We're going to designate you.
Numbers, you're the numbers guy.
You're the CCR, CCO appropriate language motion map.
I'll have them tomorrow. Kathy's back.
Is Kathy going to catch up on the minutes and everything?
Yes.
Because there's no minutes from the previous meeting.
I know.
So, all right, so she's coming back to catch up on that.
Yeah, and we've got thanks to Jody, we actually interviewed a temp this morning that will be here tomorrow to train with Kathy. And we've got,
Excellent.
and we have two-tiered full-time.
I'll just save that for the start of the meeting. Or
Yeah,
after.
okay.
Meeting is starting at 5:30, and join me in pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Would the city manager call the roll?
Councilman Redmond.
Here.
Councilman Collings.
Here.
Councilman Stearns. Mayor Stackfleth.
Here.
Tessa is traveling on business and won't make it tonight.
Correct. All right, so we will move on to special presentations, and we do not have one tonight, correct? City
Yep.
manager? Okay. Then move right into public comment. This is a chance for people to speak about items not in the agenda or items in the consent agenda. Limit yourself to 3 minutes. I will be timing. And do we have any takers in the audience tonight? 5, 3, 2, 1. All right, we will close the public comment section of tonight's agenda and move on to council and staff comments. Usually start with the city manager, so that's where we'll start tonight.
Okay. Well, we're in ongoing negotiations with the Humane Society to extend the current contract for another year. They've restructured. They're asking that we pay a flat fee, and I forget the exact number. It isn't a flat fee per animal, but a certain amount that would help augment their budget. It seems they've moved to a model where they're looking to shore up their general fiscal health. And from what I can see, I don't, I want to be careful here. I'm not sure that the fee that they're asking us to pay beyond the first year is consistent with the number of animals that we bring in. So we're trying to extend this contract for a year while we negotiate with the Humane Society and figure something that works for us. But we're over a barrel in that we don't have anybody else that will take our animals. Weed has a small pound that they can't manage, and Wairika isn't willing to take our nuisance animals. So that's in the process. Dealing with the One Shasta folks, there is, we finally have assigned right of entry to the tank site and to the easement area that will allow us to start environmental. We've got a environmental grant that has been extended 4 times, and we're not going to get another extension. We want to get that in place. The last time we had negotiations with the owner, I don't know what was going on, but he was, let's just say, very angry and unhinged, frankly, and thinking that we're trying to force him into the city taking a quote-unquote water right when it's not a water right. It's access to a well, and one of the things that we're keeping, we're hammering home with him is you don't have water rights. You have a well that is heavily restricted in its use on site, and ultimately, if you're trying to annex into the city, you need that water to not only help us round out our water supply in the city of Mount Shasta, but you're gonna need it for all of your uses there, and the only, as far as I know, the only municipal supplier that's gonna be able to treat that water is us, and he's trying to, and I understand his thinking, I just don't think it's dawned on him the reality of he can't act as his own, you know, municipal treatment entity. It needs to be a city or a county. And so right now we're at an impasse because he wants to, for lack of a more technical word, Y off the available water and leave him the ability to have raw water to be used for agricultural use as, you know, fish culture, aquaculture, or any other thing that may come up. So he wants to keep his options open, but ultimately he's going to find that he doesn't have any because of the limitations on industrial uses of that water. So right now, we're just going ahead. He's agreed to give us the well site and the easement. The well site we need because it is the only place that's flat, that has the elevation we need to gravity feed not only his site, but the rest of the city of Mount Shasta. So we're taking it piece by piece. At least we have the well site and the easements, and we can use the environmental grant on this. And so at least we've got forward progress, although slow. I finally have approved enhanced infrastructure finance district incorporation language that John Kenny and I finally have agreement on verbiage that's going to work for the city, as well as verbiage for bylaws for the Public Financing Authority. So that I will be bringing to the next council meeting for approval. That's one of the steps in EIFD incorporation. The other portion of this that will move us on the track towards EIFD incorporation and meeting our requirements and due diligence under the state of California is we need a engineer's map and survey documents, and I signed a contract with a company that works with Cosmot, the EIFD formation consultant, and they're at work getting that done. All the pieces are going to be coming together, and we'll get those approved, and we'll be off to the races. The you know, one of the things we're trying to do next, there's an ad hoc committee that has been meeting on the potential formation of a couplet of Chestnut and Mount Shasta. A couplet, for those that haven't heard that term before, is essentially one-way streets on Chestnut and Mount Shasta, as well as looking at the potential daylight of Castle Creek to open that creek up on Castle between Mount Shasta Boulevard and Chestnut to act as a water feature, a draw, with right there being the best views on Mount Shasta. We're going to be bringing the drawings and concepts that we have out for public comment, and we have a hybrid meeting that is scheduled at the Avenue 22. The earliest date we could get and still allow us time to notice the public and get surveys out to folks beforehand is we'll be meeting on Monday, October 21st at 5:30. Moving on to the next item, many of you, especially the folks that live in the neighborhood, I know it's been distressing. The old hospital was owned by an LLC, basically the entity that provides some protection for the property owner. As we know, there was arson at the site. And so we've continually tarped what's up there in terms of the environmental hazards coming from asbestos and other materials, and that was exacerbated by the amount of water that was poured on the site to put out that fire. It's been retarped now 3 times. What we really need to do is clean up the entire thing. Fast forward to last week, the city attorney and the attorney for Bay Area Receivership Group took the owner's LLC to court, and we argued that the fact that the owner never bothered to secure the site and was found in contempt earlier for not securing the site, found in our favor and said, and rendered a judgment against the LLC saying they have 30 days to pay $895,000 in cash to the judge for all cleanup costs and all other expenses that have been incurred in dealing with this site. I suspect that there will be stonewalling, and we anticipated that at the court hearing, and posed the question that if the LLC is found in contempt, the only way we're going to move forward with this is if you pierce the corporate veil of that LLC and order the actual owner to pay that $895,000 with the threat of jail time. And so we'll see what happens within these 30 days. We may need to go back. But I guess the moral of this story is that we have forward movement on it. I know it's not as quick as some of the folks that are up there would like to see, but I think we're starting to see the end of the tunnel, and hopefully be able to get this thing cleaned up. But there is forward movement. Trying to think if there's anything else I'm missing. Oh, yeah, I think I mentioned this briefly at the last meeting. The county, they're phasing out a program for undergrounding utilities that's offered by Pac Power. The county has funds that they've never used. It's about a total of about $5.7 million. And Aetna has put in a marginal request. I haven't heard the dollar amount. I've asked that $5 million of it be allocated to the city for us undergrounding either the Castle Street area, or a more likely candidate is to underground utilities in conjunction with the Lake Street reconstruction project that's going to be happening in 2026, not 1926. And since we're going to have the street open at that time anyway, we'll get more done if we bury lines there than if we, took a standalone project along Castle and took that on. So we're waiting to see if anybody steps up and asks for some of these funds. But October, the Board of Supervisors will make a final decision, and we made a compelling argument for why we can use this, and we can show that something imminent is happening, so we're using these funds.
Well, along those lines, $5 million?
$5 million.
Is it going to cost that much just to underground the utilities along Lake Street?
It's incredibly expensive.
I know it is, but...
When I floated the idea past Ken, he said, can we get another $500,000? I'm not sure the 5 will do it.
Really?
Yeah.
So that's half a mile?
Yeah.
About, right?
Yeah.
I'll drive it and check it out, but so it's $5 million per,
Yeah.
so it's $10 million a mile to underground utilities. That's why all these poles are being fixed versus them putting them underground. When people request that all these utility lines be put underground, it's because it is way more expensive. Now, I've been told it's 4 times more expensive, but it sounds like to me it's far more than that, based on what you're telling me now.
We'll get some economies.
So in other words, if it's $1 million, if they fix $1 million worth of lines above ground, like they're doing now, and they're doing like the whole city,
well, the bottom line
multiply that by 4 times, and that's what it costs to put it underground.
Yeah.
But it sounds like it's more than that to me.
Yeah, and we'll get some economy of scale because the road is going to be open, and it's a full reconstruction of that roadway. And it's expensive, and that's why a lot of communities have moved to when their respective power companies come in and they need to replace poles. They've set up funds and ordinance that say that the utilities have to be buried once they're in place, piece by piece, because it's that much cheaper to do up front.
Yeah, right, when you're putting in new lines.
Yeah.
Do it up front, right. Okay, so that's all you have?
Yeah.
Okay, do you want us to comment on the city clerk, deputy city clerk's situation?
Yeah. So Kathy, our excellent, really experienced and sort of a pink unicorn in terms of the level of experience and resiliency and knowledge, has made a decision to move somewhere east, and she's been on vacation for 3 weeks or so. She's back tomorrow, and she let us know that once she's back next Tuesday, she is giving us to the end of the first week in September, and then she's gone. So it's going to be a major loss in terms of that knowledge drain for the city, and so we're going to be having to pick up the slack. And as I mentioned, Jody Polk has done a tremendous job on jumping on this. Muriel and Melissa and I met with a potential candidate this morning. She seems great. She has no city clerk experience, but has some adjacent experience. She's going to be in starting tomorrow to shadow Kathy. Hopefully we can get her up to a reasonable level of speed over the next 2 weeks. In the meantime, we have, Jody had a great idea in that instead of one city clerk position, we've created two, a city clerk 1 and a city clerk 2, with the idea that it's going to be pretty tough to find a trained city clerk. So if you're hired as a clerk 1, the incentive for you to make more money is to get credentialed as a city clerk, and there are different levels of credentialing. And if you then seek that credentialing sooner rather than later, then you're bumped up to that higher level pay or a city clerk number 2. So that's out. It's out on the street, and we'll see what we get.
Thanks, Todd. Did you have a question for?
A couple. First of all, who was the judge?
I didn't drive to Wairika to attend the proceedings. I got a call from Jones Noreen right after. He was I don't know if this is putting in sense of giddy as a schoolgirl.
Pardon?
He was giddy as a schoolgirl in the judgment.
bet,
So
Yeah. All right. Number 2, we do have the annual League of Cities Conference coming up.
Yep.
They oftentimes have training for city clerks.
They do.
So I hope that staff would consider that possibility.
And that'll be brought up in Kathy has certification in 3 different levels. And so in this temporary person's interactions with Kathy over the next week, I'm going to ask that she fill in what are the requirements and when's the soonest this person can get in. If it ends up that the clerk likes this and seems motivated and seems like a good fit, assuming that we don't have the pink unicorn show up in an interview and that we have a certified seasoned city clerk applying for the position.
All right. Good, okay. Chief, do you have some comments?
So first of all, an update on K9 Artie. He's doing good. He got the cone of shame off this week. Stitches are out, and if he continues to heal, it's projected that he could be back to work in a couple of weeks. Really good response from the community. Want to thank the community and everybody who donated to his GoFundMe. Was able to cover the entire amount of his surgery and medical care. So thank you to the community for helping out the canine. We really appreciate that. On the second note, you guys see here, Sergeant Moore's with me. I am being forced due to medical reasons to be out of the office for an extended period of time, possibly up to 3 months. We're not sure yet. So he's been appointed as the acting chief in my stead. So he's here tonight to learn the ropes of council and learn how to talk. And then he will be be the steward of Gondor until I return.
Okay, so he'll do all your reports that you usually do? Yeah. Okay. Over here, Muriel, Melissa? No? All right. I'm going to say some things basically in review. One of them, I'm part of 4 different ad hoc committees, and one of them is regarding the couplet and daylighting of Castle Creek. So we already had a summation of where we are in that process, and by the city manager, so I will be able to skip forward to the other ad hoc committees I'm part of. One of them is the finance subcommittee, and in that regard, we have the audit to review, and that's been completed for 2023, fiscal 2023. As you all know, we approve as a council hiring Brooks, no, for the computer, Springbrook,
Yeah.
excuse me, yeah. And that has currently been working very well, hopefully. And you're, okay, we're learning how to use their software, I guess is the best way to put it. Okay. So, and the last thing is the, how shall we say, improved, the policy regarding how to handle our obligations with respect to pensions. And that policy is in the court of our consultant Weiss, who they also happen to be our bond consultant. They're our bond people. And they will soon come forward with something for council. What do you think, Muriel? Okay, so that's where we are with respect to the finance ad hoc committee. Well, the main thing is we're waiting for Weiss consultants to come up with a policy regarding our pension situation, our pension obligations. Now, that's a recommendation by the auditor also that we have a policy, so we're following through on that auditor recommendation. All right, the other thing I'm part of is the library expansion committee, and we're at the point now where the consultant we hired, Nolan Tam, has given us, I believe, 4 scenarios from which to choose. They range from $2 million plus, basically a nice renovation, to $5 million plus, a nice renovation plus 2,000 square feet additional added onto the building, mainly for a community center. And the Friends of the Library and Library Tax Advisory Committee has decided to take this under advisement and figure out if they can raise enough money to go for probably the biggest project. I have a slight problem with that because I think it's going to take a long time to raise that much money.
Good.
And I'm not sure if we should wait that long and just make a decision as a council to go for something much more affordable that was within our means, which would mean probably just a renovation, a strict renovation, improvement of what exists. If council's not interested in doing that, that's fine, but don't expect the big project to happen anytime soon. Just warning you. That will sit out there for a long time, as it has. This process has started in 2016 or thereabouts. It's 2024. This will go, if we wait, this will go to 2026 for sure. So something for council to think about if you're finding this humorous. It is, right? Yeah, sadly. If this council thinks it should be something for the next council to handle, that's fine by me too. We're sort of heading into lame duck status here. We're not quite there. Not quite there.
Sitting on a nest.
I think it's next month, October maybe, end of September. Anyhow, that's the situation with that ad hoc committee. It's up to those two groups, and it really are. It's 2 different groups, right? LTAC and Friends of, that sort of the leading decision makers on what to do with the library. And to that extent, we'll see what.
So
what they
one of the
decide.
things that was discussed at the Library Expansion Committee, and it's not guaranteed to succeed, is going out for a blitz on our city website and wherever we can get the word out to see if there's any appetite within, say, a 2-month period where we get any bites from Ford, McConnell, the usual groups, and folks that live here that may have deep pockets and love of libraries that are willing go for the larger gesture for the expansion. And if we're not getting any bites within a 1 or 2 month period of time, it's council's obviously decision to say, forget that, I don't think that's gonna work, let's go for just the basic renovation. But I wanna, it may be worthwhile to swing for the fences and see if we've got anybody out there that may think this is a good enough idea that they're willing to open their wallets.
Go ahead, Tim.
Question, has there been any thought of taking, was it Noel
Nolan Tam?
and Tam's plans and seeing if there are any other engineers or contractors that might be able to do the work at less?
Well,
Okay,
the reality is that these are estimates, and I would say there's a general feeling that they're a little on the high side per square foot, et cetera. Well, no, it was down to,
We had previously
well,
talked in
because
terms
it's a
of,
6,000 square foot project for the $5 million one. But that's what they're telling us it'll cost. Now, is it higher than what Mount Shasta Engineering thought it would cost? Yes. Mount Shasta Engineering was an 8,000 square foot project. They were going to add 4,000 square feet and do improvements to the exterior and so forth. And they thought that would cost, Nick Riddle, right? Yeah. He thought that would cost in the $3.5 million range, maybe more, but that was in 2017, 2018. So there's been some inflation in California construction. And sure, if the decision is made to go for what is currently the full project, the thinking being that it's going to cost over $5 million, and you go with that and put it out to bid, so to speak, and it comes in less, great. I just think that given our history of putting things out to bid, they always come in higher.
So,
And
but
the
John,
sewage treatment plant being an example.
John, I think there's one thing to add to this. Noel and Tam, well, first of all, let me back up. All of the estimates in the costing exercise, it's of course at prevailing wage, because we have to go with prevailing wage because we're using public funds. Number two, they're pricing the cost of this library on the average cost in Berkeley. And so are we likely to find something up here that is still prevailing wage but is more in line with our community? I think we're going to see a reduction there. I don't, if it's marginal, but it's going to come in lower is my guess, as long as we don't drag this thing out forever.
And that's the key. I mean, to me, logically speaking, if we like the largest plan, and they put together a proposal that's biddable, right?
Yep.
Put it out there, and it comes in at 4.3 million. Then we look at our funding mechanism. At this point, if Friends of the Library does not raise more money, the surplus that the library tax generates after the cost of running the library, I don't think are going to cover that payment. It depends on interest rates and so forth, but we could put down $1 million because there's that type of reserve. Really lower that backup fund, that reserve fund for the library to make a down payment on the construction, and even still, there's going to be very little or no cushion to make that payment for that construction loan. So,
and I believe there was a 35% contingency attached.
that it might go higher. Yeah.
Right.
so other questions, if I may?
Yeah.
Is it a possibility of getting a loan from iBank or something like that, like a 40-year loan? Another possibility would be there are some lending institutions that will do the sale leaseback arrangement basically the city sells the property to third party, leases the property back over a period of years, another financing technique. Third question would be...
There are some risks to that, because it means if we default on the payment, they get to sell the land. Okay, well, go ahead.
Third question is, oftentimes in a large construction project, and I don't know, this may be considered a large construction project
No,
for Mount
it's not.
Shasta, building in that a certain percentage of jobs would be local. Another possibility would be that a certain percentage of the jobs would be apprentice or versus journeyman, which might reduce the cost somewhat. So
Yeah.
those are just ideas I'm throwing out and
Yeah.
wondering about.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think the cost savings will be maybe a little more than marginal in those cases. The biggest issue is whether someone will finance this with a 40-year loan like the sewage treatment plant. And the way that worked was we did a higher interest loan with the infrastructure bank, I believe it was, and then that was paid off by the USDA, and we are now making payments on a 40-year loan at 2%, 2.3%.
Right.
So that's the scenario you're talking about.
Right.
Yeah, those numbers have to be hammered out, but even, I've crunched the numbers, the payment, even in that scenario, is kind of above what the surplus is that the library operating fund generates. I mean, so we wouldn't qualify for the loan. So they want to see a cushion, these loan givers, the loan originators, they want to see a cushion between the funds that are going to pay the loan payment and your cost. So there needs to be a nice 20% gap between free cash flow, so to speak, and the payment. So let's say the payment's $80,000. Do you have $100,000 in free cash flow? Meaning that the library tax after expenses leaves $100,000 in surplus every year. Like there's some history of that. That's the problem with the $5 million plan. There isn't that room, and that's why the Library Tax Advisory Committee wants to go back and see if they can raise $1 or $2 million more.
And it's very possible I won't be on council when this thing comes before the council for a vote. I do know, however, that for 2 decades or more, we have talked about the need to expand the library. And that was even before we were talking about increasing the population in Mount Shasta,
Yeah.
which would be a greater reason to increase the capacity or the space.
I guess.
And I think I appreciate you all looking at the various alternatives.
Yeah, my point is if you want something to happen in the near term, we'll have to go for the lesser project. If we are set on doing the full project, right, there has to be a combination of fundraising and checking all the available financing mechanisms.
Unless we have a godfather or a rabbi show up with.
And an angel, the library
Yeah,
angel come in
right.
with $2 million.
I mean,
and just
and
go,
one other thing to add to this, if we were looking at apprentice labor or some other way to maybe undercut prevailing wage, what we'll have here is what, and I think John knows this, the local union, we may have the equivalent here of what you see in New York if we're not dealing fairly and hiring experienced folks at the prevailing wage. We're going to have a 30-foot blow-up rat and people coming out of the woodwork to protest the city of Mount Shasta.
If I can,
Yeah.
I don't know how many other council members or staff saw the article recently that the city of South Tahoe is seeking to raise funds for various projects with naming rights. And when I say with naming rights, if some company or person guarantees or contributes 500,000, a million, million and a half, 250,000, they get naming rights to this or that or whatever.
Yeah. Well,
And that is-
We discussed that.
somebody wants their name on that library. I don't know if she's
Yeah.
contributing that much money, but she certainly has
But it's-
helped run it for a long time.
The person that
It doesn't have to be the
deserves
entire
They-
library.
yeah.
It could be a wing or a room or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, well, that might disappoint a major player from Friends of the Library, but that's okay. Yes, naming rights are a real thing. It's done at the university level all the time, yes, absolutely. Anyhow, if we're going to go for the big project, it's going to take some work, and that's all I'm saying, and it's going to take some time. All right, so the fourth ad hoc committee I'm on is with Jeffrey regarding the downtown snow plowing district, and correct me if I'm wrong, we are ready to present something to council in the next, because we should do this by the end of September, I would think. You do it the next meeting. So that's one of our agenda items, future agenda items, and
Ken has that teed up. I think
Okay,
he's
good.
just got a little waylaid, but I will ask that he make this a priority.
either it's first or second one in
Yeah,
September.
I thought about this today,
Let's
because
get that.
it would be embarrassing that if we end up going through another season without this
Exactly.
being resolved.
All right, let's move on to the next agenda item. Todd, do you have any reports from the various advisory committees?
I don't. DEC is meeting on Wednesday, so I haven't seen them.
All right, thank you. And then we'll move on to consent agenda. Item number 7, city manager recommends approval of the following consent agenda items. All resolutions and ordinances on this agenda or added hereto shall be introduced or adopted as applicable by title only, and the full reading thereof is hereby waived. A, approval of disbursements, accounts payable, total gross payroll and taxes for period ending August 15th, 2024. B, monthly investment and revenue report for the payroll period ending on June 30th, 2024. C, police department monthly report for July 2024. D, second reading with amendments for short-term rental ordinance, which is CCO-24 number to be next number in order. And E, Proposition 172, maintenance of effort 2021 through 2022. I don't believe that's a resolution number. No.
I'll have it tomorrow.
Well, I just don't think it is. I don't think it's presented that way. E, Proposition 172, maintenance of effort for 2021, 2022.
It's the transportation fund monies that needed to be done for that particular year.
So
It's
it's
there-
a-
you don't, there's not a resolution.
It's not a resolution number. Okay. Motion, please? Or questions?
No questions. But I don't have the actual title of the short-term rental ordinance. Does someone else have that?
Bear with me a second. I've got it in here.
I move approval of consent agenda, A, B, C, and D, D being the second reading with amendments of the short-term rental ordinance, CCO-24, next in order, an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Mount Shasta, amending municipal codes, Chapter 5.50, 18.08, and 1821 by title only.
And E?
And E.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Second?
I can't vote on this in a second. I wasn't at the meeting. I can't vote on the second reading. I gotta abstain because I was not last meeting.
I think that is correct.
So you got a second, and then you guys approve. I just gotta abstain. I gotta abstain, right, because I wasn't at the last meeting?
Second.
The Mayor Pro Tem is abstaining from voting on the consent agenda due to lack of attendance at the meeting regarding the short-term rental ordinance.
So there was a second by Councilmember Collins.
Yes, and all those in favor, please say aye.
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 And aye,
And one abstention.
and one abstention. Mr. Redmond. Yeah, made it a little bit more complicated because being abstaining for the whole thing is okay in this case. We had a quorum, so we're good. Moving on to number 8, first reading of CCO-24- number to be determined regarding the graffiti ordinance, and Chief of Police, Mr. Gibson, will speak to this item.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Over the past few years, Mount Shasta has seen a vast increase in the amount of graffiti vandalism throughout the town. However, the Mount Shasta Municipal Code had no code that directly addressed this nuisance. Staff was directed to draft and come back to council with an ordinance addressing graffiti issue. After researching several other city ordinances throughout California, a draft was tailored for Mount Shasta. It was sent off to the planner and then off to the city attorney, who finalized the final ordinance that's in front of you. Some of the highlights of this new ordinance are that it will allow the city to recover costs for the cleanup of the vandalism. It will authorize the city to remove graffiti from private property with the consent of the owner, or after proper notification without the consent of the owner. It allows the city to develop a work program or a program to work with the property owners on the cleanup. And this order will also allow for a mechanism to gain compliance from property owners in removing the graffiti through the administrative site process and the nuisance abatement process, should they not want the city's help in cleaning the nuisance. Further, this ordinance allows the city to hold those that are doing the vandalism and the graffiti responsible, and will allow the city to go after that individual civilly and criminally, and would authorize the city to petition the court as part of the sentencing of this person for the criminal acts that they perform community service in the city, cleaning up the graffiti that they did. So staff respectfully request council approve the first reading. I do have an amendment to the that I'm going to read here in a minute. Approve the first reading with the amendments and move it to a second reading. And if I'll take staff real quick to section 7.80.040, graffiti prohibited, subsection B. I'm going to read the whole section, and then I will highlight where the added language is in that section. Section B is, it is unlawful for a person owning or otherwise in control of any real property within the city to permit or allow any graffiti to be placed upon or remain on any permanent structure, including fencing and trash receptacles, located on such property when the graffiti is visible from the street or other public or private property for a period in excess of 72 hours following service by the city of notice to abate graffiti, and here is the amendment language, or unless a permit has been obtained by complying with the applicable provisions of Chapter 18.65, Public Mural Review, or Title 8 Graphics of this code. Failure to comply may result in enforcement action by a city pursuant to Mount Shasta Municipal Code Section 1.04. We will add Section C, which states each day the graffiti is maintained beyond the initial 72-hour period constitutes a separate offense and is subject to the penalties set forth in Mount Shasta Municipal Code 1.03.010. This was added in reference to some suggestions from the citizens and from council regarding the fairness of the thing.
So if I can add to this, there was a comment regarding the potential for stifling free speech in the form of, written word. So what I would say to that is, one, if you are actually producing a mural, it's not going to be open to the interpretation of the public of whether or not it's art. That for you to paint a mural on the side of your building, you need to go to the Planning Commission for the approval of that mural. If you have something that has branding on it, like say, Joe's Auto Body Shop, and there was a painting of vehicles or something else on there, there's a certain size, if there was actual branding, that is covered under the sign code. If let me think about this other piece here. Let me see if I can figure this out here. So, sign code, mural, or it's clearly a nuisance, then we can clean this up. There's also, God, I'm blanking on this. I'm sorry. In other words, there are three mechanisms. It's either graffiti, it's graphics for a business, that's covered under the sign code, and then there is the mural ordinance. So if you're going to paint something, it's got to be approved by the Planning Commission, so nobody's going to touch it at that point. So we've got all the mechanisms in place to cover this.
Good. Okay, so let's be disciplined here and start with clarifying questions.
No questions. One other, just a typo.
Yeah.
At .050 A3, where it talks about, where it makes reference to subsection B, the B should be capitalized.
Thank you.
Okay, so is that edit?
Yep.
You've got it? Okay, that's it? No questions? All right, so this would be a public hearing, I believe, since it's an ordinance.
Yes.
And so we'll open the public hearing now at 6:16. You've got 3 minutes to speak on this, if anybody would like to in the audience.
Are we speaking on subjects or our own subjects?
This is only about the graffiti ordinance right now. So if you have something else, you want to speak about the graffiti ordinance?
Address the council because
Yeah.
kind of exploratory. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I'll get closer to the mic.
Well, thanks.
Name and place that you reside.
Huh?
Name and place that you reside.
My name's Douglas Rubel, and I'm a member of an art circle, 23 members here. And we've been meeting in coffee houses and studios and homes. And we noticed actually that Dunsmuir has an art center. It has an art gallery and museum that we attend to. Also, Wairika has one, but Mount Shasta really has no art center. So we have so much talent here in this community. We have so many people that are in the woodwork with the talents that have no way of expression. So we're looking to set up an art center here in some way that it would serve the community. In some ways, we would have classes. We are doing some classes already with the bioecological center here, teaching woodwork and with sculpting. But we want to expand that, and we want every artist to have a reason to come to it, so it would serve both the artists, the community, because it would give it a real focus of what they're finding in Dunsmuir and other places that have an art center. And it would also be, if we do it right, it would actually be a magnet for people coming from all over the world to visit a high-class art center, because it's high-class art here, to see it and remember Mount Shasta as that dimension of expression. So I'm just looking to be pointed, because I don't know the ins and outs of the cities. I've only lived here for 2 years. We have members that have been here over 10 years, but who can I be pointed to learn more about how we can work with the city? We're applying for a grant with T-Mobile that will help fund it forward, maybe looking at starting in January. But if there's anything we can know or you can provide for us in terms of how we can work with the city itself, I'm all ears.
You want to answer that question?
Yeah. So A couple of things. Are you incorporated as a nonprofit?
We're just individuals.
Okay.
We're not
So-
even that.
So you're in the, you're on the ground floor of this. However you're organized, as long as you're self-funded and you're not looking for city funding, you know, I would say once you get organized and you've got a mission statement, I would talk to both the Downtown Enhancement Advisory Committee as well as the Beautification Committee, and you know, you can contact the city and I can get contacts for both. I would work with them to see how you can work with both parties to see how you can enhance their missions. And frankly, if there's something there that you're doing and it's fungible on your group's part, as long as you're pulling the correct permits to make this happen and getting the right approvals, I think it's a great idea.
Is there a key person that we can deal with? Or?
Call me. Call me.
Call you?
Yeah, I'll give you a card after the end of the meeting.
All right,
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else on this item? Going once, twice, 3 times. All right, so the public hearing is closed on the graffiti ordinance item, and we'll bring this back to council for comment or a possible motion. Okay, into the microphone.
I move the reading of ordinance CCO-24- number to be determined at the second reading. An ordinance of the City Council of the City of Mount Shasta adding Chapter 7.80 Prevention of and Removal of Graffiti to the Mount Shasta Municipal Code as with the amendments that were stated tonight.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
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 And aye. Any opposed? Passes 4-0 with Clore absent. All right. Give me a second to get to the next item, folks. Okay. All right, so the next item is item number 9 regarding joining a joint powers authority for the management of the stage bus service. Right off the bat, I'm not 100% sure if this is a new JPA or we're joining one that already exists. I believe it's new. But city manager is going to speak to this.
Yeah. So I spoke to Melissa Cummins, the executive director of the LTC, Local Transportation Commission. What is happening is that each city is contracted to pay a certain share for, provision of stage bus services in each community. That amount isn't going to change. What this does, right now, the Board of Supervisors acts as the de facto decision-making body for where routes for buses or, various changes, the types of buses that we're using, and there has been a lot of complaints from certain communities that there isn't local input and they're not satisfied. I know Dunsmuir, for instance, the current stage bus service, they make one pickup in the morning, so if you're going to Wairika for an appointment, it's going to be a full day because you're not going to be brought back until the end. So instead of the Board of Supervisors making this decision, this JPA kind of shifts that burden to transportation experts and leaders in each community. So this board of directors is going to include some city managers, local transportation officials in each, or experts in each community. And so, in thinking, in theory, we're going to get better decisions on how each of our communities is served within reason and within budget. Because there was a view that, I'm going to be careful about this, the services were sort of skewed, the decision-making was skewed to North County. And so that is making this change for that sole purpose.
Well, that answers the question. It is a new entity, and go ahead, Tim, your question?
Yes, I read through this. I previously served as a commissioner on LTC, Local Transportation Commission. This looks to me to be, actually, the LTC has 4 supervisors and 3 representatives of cities who are appointed by the Siskiyou County League of Cities, and then an alternate also from the League of Cities. This appears to be a mirror image of LTC. It doesn't look like LTC is going to go away.
That's correct.
And LTC in the past has made determinations as to routes, as to purchases of buses, as expenses. I think what I read here, in my opinion, doesn't make sense at this point. I have questions about it. And I think it may be helpful to have Melissa Cummings make a presentation before the council. I don't know if you've asked her to do that or not, but if not, I would suggest that occur.
If that's where council sits, I will make that request in my conversations with her. The intent is to ensure that local communities have more say, and it isn't just the LTC making the final decision. But if that's where council wants, I'll make the request that we put this off and have Melissa come down and give a presentation.
Yeah, when I read through this,
Yeah.
The makeup of this new Siskiyou Transportation Agency Board of Directors would be the same as LTC and have the same duties. So I'm
No, that's explicit. No, it's LTC. Members, they just shift over to the JPA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it
The
would still
question
be, it would still be a
is
4-3.
it a stronger body? Will it be a stronger body that, well, the intent of this is to democratize, basically make the power distribution regarding control of the stage system-wide, county-wide versus bias towards Wairika, essentially. And there have been cutbacks in service. Now, I just happen to think the cutbacks in service are due to financial issues. And, you know, what are you going to do to improve service, increase service? You have to go to smaller vehicles that cost less to operate, which means you have to invest in them, and then take it from there. But, yeah, service has been really curtailed as far as routes and stops.
Essentially, any public transportation agency is essentially a money loser. They are, all of them.
Nationwide, in the United States, yeah, for sure.
Again, it looks to me like the makeup, the composition of LTC and the composition of this proposed new JPA are identical.
Yeah, but
I don't see any shifting
but the idea is that
members or responsibilities.
is not the idea that we're still asking questions, which is good. Isn't the idea that this powers authority will rest from the Board of Supervisors control the system?
Yes. So I was asked
Whereas LTC is not doing that.
So the request was made for me to be part of this, and I said yes, and they ended up asking Dunsmuir City Manager to be on it, but they seem to be making a real effort to not democratize this, but it's not Father Knows Best is the attempt. But if you have questions, we can put this off.
So there's no deadline for this, per se?
They would like to get it done by the end of the month, but I don't see...
End of August or end of September?
End of August.
Oh,
But it
okay.
isn't, but that's the, I don't want to throw the county under the bus, but that's the modus operandi. They throw you a document and say, this is a rush, and we've got this hard deadline that's, a week away, and if we're not comfortable with this, and it sounds like the group isn't, then we need to miss a deadline. It's not like stage
I'm
is
not
gonna stop
necessarily
running.
uncomfortable with this at all. I just think whether it's the county board of supervisors or this JPA, the problem is that there's lack of funding
Yes,
to keep the system running. So
welcome to
what
America.
are they
Welcome to
going,
America.
what miracle is the JPA going to work that the supervisors are not working and nobody really wants fair increases? So it's a tough situation. But yeah.
I have questions whether LTC will continue to exist when this is formed, and whether this is just the LTC under a different name, because there's no shifting in power or influence.
The LTC
But
will.
from what I read, so that's why I have questions and
Yeah,
would
the
like to hear
LTC
from
will
Melissa.
be the convener of the meeting still. It's not like the LTC is going away. It's just not the LTC taking top-down direction from the Board of Supervisors. It's the LTC now herding cats with communities and members of the board, but not.
LTC hasn't taken
Yeah.
direction from Board of Supervisors. There are 4 members of the Board of Supervisors who sit on LTC with 3 members from cities. This proposed JPA will have 4 members from the Board of Supervisors and 3 members from the cities sitting on the JPA. In fact, the way I read it, they will be identical. The same persons that sit on LTC will sit on this JPA. Bruce Deutsch is one of the members that sits on LTC. So I would really like to hear
Okay.
why there's
All right. So
another
do we
agency.
need to go to public comment if we're going to postpone this to the next meeting or a meeting to be determined based on availability of?
Let me do this. Let me move that this be continued to the next meeting and get Melissa Cummings, who's the executive.
Assuming she's available. You have,
Yeah,
no,
I
you have no
mean-
idea what her schedule is, but yeah, all right. So make the motion officially? Okay.
That's my motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And aye. Any opposed? All right, passes 4-0 with Clore absent. All right, give me a second, folks. Okay, so, So the next item is regarding choosing a group business marketer for the city, Visit Mount Shasta. And we have an incumbent, and that'd be Extension Josh Thomas's business, and he's got a bid here, a proposal here. We have another proposal by Tragically Glib, I believe. And the first group is, I guess, Desi Faith and Christopher Parnell. I don't see a DBA per se. Anyhow, we have 3 proposals for our social media campaign to promote visitors coming to Mount Shasta. And would the city manager like to go over this? I can also go over it.
Do we have,
Or do we have
we have Josh Thomas.
we have Josh
Here.
Thomas here for Ascension? Do we have anyone here from the other
And
2?
we had presentations from Daisy Faith and from Tragically Glib last time, and we didn't have a way to show the graphics and didn't have the presentations. The presentations are in the packet. It's really hard to, for me, unless they're in action, I don't know who's going to do the best job. I know that the board over at the chamber expressed that they thought Daisy Faith and Chris Parnell's proposal in their mind was strongest. You know, Josh, of course, is the incumbent and has been doing, you know, the work up to now, and you know, and it wasn't clear from what's in this packet and from Daisy Faith and Chris Parnell exactly. Well, you know, ultimately it's the known versus the unknown. And until we've got time to see whether or not the other two are performing, you know, we have Josh Thomas, who we've had, you know, with this contract for 2 years, and it seems to be working well. Again, it's an odd situation since this money is going to pass through from the chamber, so we don't have the actual contract, but I believe the contract required that we have quarterly, performance metrics provided. We haven't had that. I don't know what my memory said is that we had that in the contract. We haven't seen that. We can request that we have it. I don't know how well you guys have reviewed these proposals and if there's anything that stands out for you, but
Okay, so questions, clarifying questions. You want to talk after public comment? Okay. Mr. Redmond, any comments on this? Mr. Stearns? Questions, actually, questions at this point. Clarifying questions, questions in general.
I don't have any questions of staff on this. I do have questions that would pertain to each of the proposals, and I do have comments.
All right. Well, we'll move on to public comment at this time. And you get 3 minutes, folks, if you'd like to comment on this, and this would include the incumbent of one of those, if you'd like to come up and speak. So there you have it, folks. 3 minutes to comment on these items, on this item. Name and city of residence, Josh.
Joshua Thomas, resident of Mount Shasta. I just wanted to answer any questions if you guys had, and just reiterate from the last time that, this was the proposal I had requested to meet with subcommittee, chamber, this council, whoever would like to have a role in shaping what this can be, because we can do basically anything. It's just a matter of what does the city want. And so that was what I posited last time and for months leading up to this city meeting. And I haven't seen the other proposals, but I just wanted to reiterate that, we're not just doing social media, we're also doing digital marketing, we're also doing website design and management, we're also doing YouTube account management, and Todd, did you say that you had not received any analytics?
Well, what I got from the presentation is your comparison to last year over a variety of things, and presumably, your histograms were correct, and there were these increases in traffic, not only to the city but the website, and so.
You're talking about the proposal?
Yeah, and ultimately, and I don't have a copy of this contract, I just remember, and my memory is sometimes faulty, but I thought there were, and maybe they're going to Kayla, quarterly reports on where we are and that we're making forward progress on this. And, I'm sure if, I'll ask Kayla to see if she's got a copy of that contract, but it's something that council may want to see as opposed to more around the time of renewal. But, from what I looked at, the histograms that you produced, show forward progress, assuming, the statistics Statistics can be used in many ways, but you requested some information from us, and it looked positive, so.
Mhm. And yes, I just want to let it be known that I did send the quarterly analytics to Kayla and to you, Todd, but if it hasn't gotten through, I can resend if need be.
I haven't received them. You said you sent them to me?
Mhm.
Yeah, no.
Okay. Double check your email. But
Yeah, and it may be a miscue here, or, but
what's that, sir?
it may be a miscue, but it's something that if council wants to continue, visit Mount Shasta, then that's something to be worked out.
Mhm. And I can summarize that we've had just consistent growth ever since our inception, and as we learn more, you know, you're obviously going to learn on the job more and more, and the more that we learn, the better we get, and the better the statistics get. So just wanted to let that be known. And being a resident of Mount Shasta for a very long time, you know, as you guys know, there's a lot of personalities in Mount Shasta. There's a lot of people that want tourism. There's a lot of people that don't want tourism.
Yep.
There's everything in between, and I think just being here, I've been able to walk that line pretty well, and knowing all those different personalities, and being, you know, such an integral part of the community, and having lots of people here, having a business here on Main Street, I just feel that we're doing a pretty good job with that. But if you guys have any questions at all, happy to answer.
Yeah, Josh, so you have current scope of work, and you say 15 social media posts and 15 stories per month, and then your proposed scope of work on 9 high-quality posts and or reels per month and daily stories.
Yeah, the
So
goal
tell
is
me-
to,
It seems less, is that less or?
the amount of work is about the exact same, if not maybe even a little more, because we're focused on a higher quality of posts, not just posts for post's sake. And from what we've seen, what people respond to, because we have all the analytics of, you know, what has performed the best, what particular piece of content has performed the best, and it's all leading to that. Whenever we do original videos, which takes time, you know, and money, it always does better, obviously, but to create this scope of work, it's been with that 2.5 years of knowledge of everything that we've done.
So.
But that's just the social media posts.
Okay, yeah, and you think the
One of the
9
biggest things-
high quality, 9 high quality posts or reels will be more impactful than the 15 and 15 that you're
Yes,
currently doing?
along with the higher amount of ad spend in the ad marketing campaigns and new seasonal videos for summer and winter, although Mr. Stearns requested maybe doing shoulder seasons instead of summer and winter, so that's an option as well. It's just, you know, whatever the direction of the council or the chamber wants, we can do.
Any more questions of Josh?
Josh, we received basically a 27-minute of comments regarding the 3 proposals. I don't know if anyone has shared that with you or not. The person, Nick Deck, spoke very favorably of content creation, said you do an excellent job, and others, but there appears to be a lack of proportional promotion. And there was a
Keep going.
that some of the comments, and we can send you that so you can respond. I think that will be only appropriate. He came up with a number of suggestions, but he also talked about the importance of getting eyeballs on the content. That you produce beautiful content, but it's not seen by very many people, in his opinion.
And is that just based on his anecdotal evidence, or is that actually analytics?
Based upon his 10 years of marketing. And he goes into that a little bit, but he doesn't, he's not trying to take away this contract from anyone. He is trying to see if we can get the biggest bang for the buck by putting more emphasis on ad buys. And I don't know what you might say to that, because you haven't seen the video, his comments.
Yeah, part of the strategy moving forward would be to increase ad spend, because we do see significant, increases in eyeballs on media by doing ad spend. Ad spend, we get a significant increase in eyeballs on the content when we increase ad spend. So that's part of the new proposal, is increased ad spend.
But he was talking in terms of, his opinion was that probably would need minimum $500 to $1,000 per month for ad buys, and that maybe it would be more efficient, better use of money, public money, to have less content creation, because you've already created a lot of beautiful content, but to push the content out there.
That's an absolutely possible strategy, and yeah, we can absolutely
Okay.
do that if that's desirable.
Okay, Tim,
Okay.
yeah, we're
Those-
trying to be
That's-
disciplined with questions. You clear?
That's my,
Are you clarified now?
yeah,
I think what you want to continue discussing is very important, but we'll do that as a council? Okay.
I'd like to just reiterate one last thing of the, comparison. Visit Reading has $1 million budget, massive budget, much higher than ours, and they have 22,000 Instagram followers, and we have approaching 10,000 very quickly with an extremely different budget. Discover Siskiyou has 5 times our budget and only 15.5 thousand. So what we've been able to do with what we've had is pretty amazing as far as I'm concerned, and if you look at the numbers, I would think you agree.
Actually, that is pretty impressive. But anyhow, thank you, Josh. Gonna have to let you go now.
Sure.
You're way past 3 minutes.
Sure.
Anybody else like to speak about this item? And that's it. The public comment section of this agenda item is closed. We'll bring back to council for further commentary. And I know the gentleman to my left would like to say some things, but we're going to let Jeffrey speak first because he feels as if someone is stealing his thunder. So go ahead, Jeff.
Once in a blue moon, there's some things that happen in this council that I know directly about. I've had over 40 years of marketing and advertising experience, and while in the century that I was primarily working in, it was called media. It wasn't called content, it was making an ad. Now it's called content. What has changed is there is now free media buys. You can make a website or put it on Instagram or Facebook at no charge. You can have a site and you can load it in, and you don't spend any money for what used to be called an ad buy. The content that Josh has been making is excellent. We've got great ads. My headline is, I would recommend staying with him. However, our media strategy of only placing those ads in free sites without having to pay for any, what's now called a sponsored site or sponsored locations, is why we're not seeing, by some metrics, new people viewing these really beautiful pieces of content. For me, the suggestion is straightforward, and it's a two-parter. it's about 30, Josh, are you at 32,000 for an annual contract? 30,
3,200 a month times 12.
34?
38.4.
38, okay. Bluntly, for the short term, until we see if we're going to pass a 1% sales tax increase, I would suggest you've got 2 years of gorgeous content that are not being well viewed, and that I would suggest taking $1,000 a month or 12 grand off of your 38 grand contract and applying it, cut back on your new content, because the mountain doesn't move that much, or Lake Siskiyou. I'm sorry, that's a little glib, but you've done a great job with content, and you're a victim of your own success, which is we need to reallocate about $1 grand a month towards sponsored ad buys, i.e. you got to write checks for it. Until we see if we have enough money to do both, which is put you back on a full content screen scenario or creation scenario, plus about $1,000 a month in ad buys, and see how much more we can overall increase our impressions, but primarily by new and different people who are not viewing it, because most of the people who are viewing it are the same people. They're not new people, and new people are new trials with the great content he's making, and that's my bottom line suggestion.
So would you say, overall, you think we need to spend more money on marketing of the city to increase visitors? Or do you think at slightly under $40,000 good enough? What are you saying?
I think given the extensive amount of good content that he has already made, plus additional content he would make over the course of the next year, we need to reallocate 12,000 of the 38,000 to ad buys. That's until we find out if we have enough money.
Ad buys through Ascension or ad buys separately?
Ad buys through.
Are we going to put the ads through whatever he's doing, or?
Yes, he would. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So he would be the marketing person we would pay to do the ad buys.
Yeah, him.
Right.
Is my recommendation.
They just want to change his contract, so to speak. That's your recommendation.
Change the content, the
Gotcha.
mix a little bit.
Okay, so same money, slightly different program. It's about a third different, okay. Ms. Stearns?
Yeah, I think I agree with Councilmember Collins. What I'd propose is, again, provide the verbal comments or video comments to each of the three companies. Let them choose to modify their proposals or not, and see if we can finalize this at the next meeting. Mount Shasta is so well known, at least by some, that maybe we can go from 32 likes for an item to 300 or 3,000 likes for a particular video, and from 8,000 total views to maybe 100,000 total views with ad buys. Really do the marketing because that's what we want. We want to bring more people in to Mount Shasta.
So Jeffrey, just to be clear, you're suggesting he doesn't spend the money on making new videos as much as putting the videos he's made, using that money for the ad buys, just putting those same videos
No.
on the new platform?
No, he would spend $26,000 on additional new content and $12,000 on new ad buys.
Okay.
Ad buys that have never been made before because
Gotcha, okay.
we're not allocating any money to buy sponsored ad places to reach people that we're not reaching.
Okay.
And relative to making new proposals by the other candidates, the expertise in ad buying is, at this minimal level of $1,000 a month, is virtually nil. It's just, do I have a budget or don't I? And relative to content creation, which is a wildly varying levels of quality that you can see, I couldn't make a stronger recommendation to go with somebody we already know is doing a great job. And that's my personal opinion, but for once in a blue moon, it's actually an educated opinion, because I've got a lot of experience in this, and he's doing a great job.
Strongly about this.
Yeah. Gotcha. All right. No, I'm all in favor of using Josh still as well.
All right.
Just wanted to clarify that.
So, my thoughts are somewhat in line with the critic that's been mentioned by other counselors regarding all three packages. Something needs to be done to increase the universe of viewers of content. So I would agree with what Jeffrey's saying. I actually think we need to spend a lot more money to promote the city. We're basically at sub $40,000. That means we're spending less. We're spending about 0.6% to market the city. On a percentage basis, it's not much. If we went to 1%, it would be more like $65,000. People may not, counselors may not feel comfortable doing that right now, pending the November election decision on the ballot measure. But I do think that if that is successful and our tax income flow is improved dramatically over the years, it might be worth increasing the marketing of the city at that point. So that's my thought. I think we need to do more along the lines of what Councilor Collins is saying. And with respect to the three proposals, I'm in favor of staying with the incumbent because we just have experience and the work has been really good, and there have been some tangible results, measured results with respect to statistics and improvements in sales tax and TOT. So it's correlational. Who knows if it's causal, but there's some improvements there that I would like to see grow even more with respect to revenues to the city, and that would imply some sort of marketing program. I'm getting the impression that at least two counselors would like to see revised proposals that stress ad buys and then make a decision after those presentations. Is that what I'm getting? I think that's reasonable. Give all three parties a chance to refine their proposals and then make a call at the next meeting. Is that amenable? Okay. Will someone make a motion to do that? And or do we need a motion on such a thing? Yeah.
I'll second your motion.
All right, we'll call my statement of motion, and you'll second that. So, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And aye. Any opposed? All right, we have Clore absent. city manager will need to contact these people and tell them what we're interested in seeing with respect to refinements of the 3 proposals, and we'll move on.
And if, I think you have on your probably gazillion list of emails, email from Nick Deck, I'll send it to you. Because
Sure.
I have it handy, and we'll hopefully send that out to the 3 as well.
Great.
Okay.
All right, so we're moving on to the next tab, which I believe is number 10 or 11? 11, okay, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem, this is going to be about extending the sublease for the unpaved parcels located at 415 North Chestnut Street. Now, that would be the 2 unpaved parcels that we've been discussing over the months. This lease is ending in, a few days, actually, on August 31st, and before I hand that over to city manager, increasing parking in general, regardless of one-way streets, couplets, daylighting of Castle Creek is a good idea if we can do that, because it helps our town be more tourist friendly, and more visitor friendly. So with that said, it's also fairly critical to the 2 projects that we've been researching, one-way couplet and daylighting of Castle Creek. So, city manager, go ahead and.
Sure. As I mentioned earlier, the daylighting of Castle Creek and creation of a Mount Shasta, or North Mount Shasta Chestnut Couplet Ad Hoc Committee met recently. What I shared is what I shared earlier, during staff comments, is that we have done a phase 1 environmental on the structure as well as the 2 unpaved parcels. The structure's a mess, and it has negative assessed value, and we don't know what the actual cleanup costs are, so we've forgone even considering that anymore. What we are still looking at are the 2 unpaved parcels to date. There's been a phase 1 on those 2. There has been ground penetrating radar that has showed no storage tanks, and we've had borings done in 4 locations, as well as water samples that have been taken to make sure that any contaminants that are potentially reaching the groundwater from the storage of junky cars out there they don't come back with any contamination, which would show we've got a baseline where groundwater isn't being impacted. So if we're using the 2 parking lots to continue it as parking, it isn't an issue. We're not going to get tied up in CEQA, so that's one. I'm waiting for the results of water sample testing that'll come back this week, and the people that were out there did some preliminary testing, and they don't expect there's going to be any contamination. Okay, so that's the baseline. What we're trying to do, as Mayor Stackfleth mentioned, is looking at the potential for daylighting Castle Creek and creating those one-way streets. To create those one-way streets, you would create angled parking, which would mean that you would lose a number of parking spaces, especially on Chestnut. To replace that parking, we need these 2 unpaved parcels for overflow. In addition, why I think it's a good idea to continue to tie these parcels up while we figure out whether or not we want to consider leasing these in perpetuity, or through the end of this study when we determine whether this is feasible or not, or working with the owner and potentially seeing if we can come to an agreement on a purchase price. I think it's smart to tie up, because the owner has intimated that he's got a renter that wants to put food trucks out there. In whatever is done on that location, since that area is going to be adjacent to a park, we don't want to have an eyesore at that location, in addition to needing overflow parking. Whether or not we do the couplet right now, I think it's a good idea to increase our stores. So I think it's a good idea to option this for an additional 6 months. The owner is willing to continue that lease at the same price for the next 6 months, and it may be prudent. I know it's expensive, but it's something that, while we look at our options for improvements for the city that I think could be transformative, we need that parcel to remain as is.
Questions? Clarifying questions? Mr. Collins?
City manager, what's the current monthly lease on that place?
For the 2 parcels, it's $900 a month.
Are we getting $900 a month from the lease of the building to the welder?
That, the lease to the welder is covering the rent for the structure itself, not the 2 unpaid parcels. So it is he is renting only the parcel with the structure on it and not the 2 unpaid parcels. They're 2 separate subleases.
Right, and what's the rent on the 2 unbuilt upon parcels?
It's $1,250.
So this is a $1,250 a month decision.
Well,
for
the
another 6
$1,250,
months.
we're gonna let that go. And the sublease will be then transferred to, whoever the owner wants to, but potentially Jesse Ramirez to continue the work that he's doing out there. That would go away. So the only thing we would be renting is the 2 unpaid parcels out back.
Right, right. And
So it's $5,400. 6 times 900, $5,400 to maintain control. It's not a big percentage of our budget. Mr. Stearns, questions?
No questions.
Me either. So this is a public comment item. We have 2 people in the audience besides staff and tech people. Would either one of you like to speak on this item? Name and residence.
David Ream, 330 Chestnut Street. I would suggest not rent the 2 lots, but make an offer on the lots, which Chuck Ryan has come up with a figure of $100,000. Give Mr. Brownell that offer, $100,000 for the 2 pieces of property, and see what happens. Save the money that you would be spending on the lease. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Wendy? Okay. Public comment is closed on this item, and we move to further council commentary.
City manager, the purpose of leasing these 2 unpaved parking lots is so we may continue our environmental exploration to make sure we know what we're getting if we decide to make an offer?
Well, we'll know by the end of the month. Here's the rub. Tying it up,
Hold on a second. So the end of the month is
31st.
4 days from now. So you're going to get the report back?
Yes.
Okay, but even still.
But it doesn't give you enough time to do this. So, Mr. Ream may be correct. For some reason, it's sticking in my head that the appraisal for the unpaid parcels is 80,000, but he may be correct. It might be 100,000. Here's the rub, though. That appraisal is for an uncontaminated site that you can use for highest and best use under the zoning under a commercial district. And since it's very limited in that it can be only used for parking, there should be an adjustment in the commercial appraisal, which I'll have done, for the limitations on that parcel. Now, when you talk to the owner, he's only about the bottom line, and that's fair. He doesn't live here. He has no allegiance to the city. I don't know if we have to try to come to a fair market, offer that he may or may not take. And so that wrangling may take a little work, plus the commercial appraiser has, a little bit of time, it's not gonna take a lot of time, maybe a week, to take into account what's found, if there is any contamination to that groundwater, and the limitation that it can be only used for parking. So there's a little bit of wrangling over whether we can make that offer, but if we tie it up, one way or another, if we're leasing it, it gives us the option for an out, right? After the end of 6 months, while we work these channels. My guess is that it would make more sense for him to continue to rent these 2 parcels to who, there'll be plenty of takers, to whoever comes in there, as long as he has cash flow. And I don't think he cares what is there. So it's, it would be easiest and cleanest if we could come to an agreement on a purchase price. I just don't think we're gonna meet that mark by August 31st.
I don't think so either. Mrs. Stearns?
Well, I'm supportive of continuing the lease. Frankly, if the city were to end up purchasing the property within the 6-month period, presumably that would terminate the lease.
Yeah.
And of course, there's always the possibility in negotiation to say, apply the lease payments towards the purchase price. Some portion of that.
Let's just say there is a level of inflexibility that leans towards no. I'll leave it at that.
So
Just think taco truck.
I finished my questions, and I'll make a motion
Please do.
to, that the city extend the lease for an additional 6 months at the rate of $900 a month.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? All right, passes unanimously with Clore absent. We move on to outside meetings. I have none to report. Looking around me, no. Move on to future agenda items. I think we have enough on our plate for a semi-lame duck city council. Will be a full one someday here, but right now it's partial. And we'll conclude the meeting without objection at 7:11. There we go.